Welcome back, listeners. I am Hari, and I'm absolutely thrilled to dive into today's historical journey.
And I am Kimmy. Today we are uncovering the life of Captain Maurice Suckling. If you do not recognize the name immediately, you definitely know the man he brought into the Royal Navy, his nephew, the legendary Horatio Nelson.
Exactly. But Suckling's story is so much more than just being Nelson's uncle. He was born on May 4th, 1726, in the Rectory House in Barsham, Suffolk. His father was the Reverend Maurice Suckling, but tragedy struck early when his father died when Maurice was just 4 years old.
His mother, Anne Turner, moved the family to Beccles. As a single-parent household, they were not particularly wealthy, which actually severely limited his career options. He could not afford a university education to follow his father into the clergy, and buying a commission in the British Army was simply out of the question.
But here's a lesser-known fact. It really pays to have high-level connections. Suckling's maternal great-uncle was none other than the Prime Minister, Sir Robert Walpole. Thanks to that massive political patronage, a 13-year-old Maurice was appointed as an ordinary seaman on the 50-gun HMS Newcastle in November 1739.
Talk about a career jumpstart. His first patron in the Navy was Captain Thomas Fox, and Fox definitely looked out for him. Fast forward to 1745, at Port Mahon, Suckling took his examination to become a lieutenant. Now, by the Navy's own strict rules, he was a year too young and lacked 7 months of required sea service.
Oh, I love this part of naval history. Who do you think was sitting on the examination board? Captain Fox himself. Naturally, the board completely ignored Suckling's age and experience deficiencies, and he passed. Nepotism at its finest.
It really was, but he did put the work in over the years. While in the Mediterranean back in 1743, Suckling met another junior officer named Peter Parker. They formed a lifelong friendship. As we will see later, even after Suckling died, Parker's preferment helped Nelson's career tremendously.
Right, those connections mattered. Suckling served on several ships as lieutenant, including the Burford, Russell, Boyne, and Gloucester. This constant movement, driven by his patrons, helped him avoid the massive wave of unemployment that hit naval officers when the Royal Navy decommissioned warships after the War of the Austrian Succession ended.
Let us fast forward to the start of the 7 Years' War. By 1756, he had been promoted to captain and given command of the 60-gun HMS Dreadnought on the Jamaica station. And here's where we get one of his most iconic moments, during the Battle of Cap-Francais in 1757.
Yes! A British squadron of 3 ships intercepted a French convoy and suddenly found themselves facing an unexpectedly powerful escort of 7 French warships. The senior British officer, Captain Arthur Forrest, called his captains together to discuss the grim situation, noting the French clearly wanted a battle.
And Suckling, completely unfazed, simply replied, "I think it would be a pity to disappoint them." What an incredible cinematic line. The 3 British ships formed a line of battle. Suckling took the vanguard and battered the French flagship Intrépide so badly her spars were destroyed, causing her to crash into the ship following behind her, the Greenwich.
The resulting chaos allowed the British to attack with little return fire, though they could not pursue the retreating French due to their own heavy rigging damage. It was a solid performance. Suckling lost 10 men with 30 wounded, making it the only full-scale battle of his entire career.
He did have another skirmish in 1758 against the French ship Palmier, which was inconclusive because his supporting ship was becalmed. Later, in 1761, commanding the HMS Nassau, he helped destroy French fortifications on the Ile d'Aix, despite interference from French praams.
After the war ended in 1763, Suckling went on half pay, essentially unemployed for 7 long years. During this time, he married his cousin Mary Walpole in 1764, but tragically, she passed away just 2 years later. They did not have any children.
To add to the tragedy, his sister Catherine passed away in 1767, leaving behind 3 sons. That agonizing void in his personal life seemed to fuel his dedication to his nephews. When the Falklands crisis flared up in 1770, Suckling was recalled to command the HMS Razonable, and he brought young Horatio Nelson along as a midshipman.
But he was not exactly confident in the boy. Horatio was known for being small and frail. Suckling famously wrote to Nelson's father asking what poor Horatio had done to be sent to rough it out at sea. He added that the first time they went into action, a cannonball might knock off his head and provide for him at once.
It is quite dark, but you have to appreciate the rather blunt 18th century naval humor. Despite those misgivings, Suckling managed Nelson's career masterfully. He wrote Nelson into the ship's books on January 1, 1771, months before the boy even joined, just to grant him extra seniority.
He also realized that serving on a stationary guard ship would not give Nelson the practical experience he needed. So, Suckling arranged for Nelson to sail to the West Indies on a merchant vessel and later orchestrated his assignment to the bomb vessel HMS Carcass for an expedition to the North Pole. He was actively clearing obstacles for his nephew. That resume building brings us to Suckling's final major career act. In 1775, the First Lord of the Admiralty, the Earl of Sandwich, appointed him Comptroller of the Navy. This was a hugely prestigious and grueling role, putting him at the head of the Navy Board.
It was essentially the administrative backbone of the Royal Navy. He was responsible for all warship construction, dockyards, and transports. This was right as the American Revolutionary War began. Under his watch, the fleet expanded from 110 ships to 306 by July 1778.
Not to mention creating a fleet of 416 troop transports to get the Army across to America. He was working 6 days a week, often while suffering from a highly painful, undiagnosed illness that started around January 1777. The historian N.A.M. Roger notes his illness hampered him compared to his predecessor, Sir Hugh Palliser, but Suckling remained an incredibly able administrator.
He did find time for one more blatant act of nepotism. In April 1777, Suckling sat on the examination board for Horatio Nelson's lieutenancy test. Just like his own exam back in the day, Nelson was technically underage, but with his uncle on the panel, Nelson easily passed.
Suckling's health finally gave out shortly after. Having attended his last board meeting in March, he died suddenly in his apartments at the Navy Office in London on July 14, 1778, aged 52. According to family legend, he notably left Nelson a sword in his will that allegedly had once belonged to Goufridus Walpole, though historians heavily debate this claim.
Nelson never forgot his uncle's massive influence. He later said of Suckling, "I feel myself to my country, his heir." Nelson even recalled his uncle's gallant conduct at Cap-Francais exactly 48 years later, right before fighting the Battle of Trafalgar.
It is incredible to think that without Maurice Suckling's guiding hand, fudged books, and strategic career placements, Britain might never have had its greatest naval hero. His own career may have been largely administrative, but his legacy shaped world history.
Absolutely true. He was the unsung architect behind the legend. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, listeners. We will be back next time with another incredible story. Have a wonderful day.
This episode is based on the Wikipedia article Maurice Suckling, which is available under the Creative Commons Attribution Share Alike license. This podcast was crafted using artificial intelligence.